Hey guys, what's up? Captain Millennium here. How's everyone doing today? So today we are here with a tier maker video, which I will be putting the link to the tier maker in the description. So today we are going to be ranking every single Star Wars movies, and as you can see that includes the spin-offs and the animated movie of the Clone Wars. So a quick little background about me. I was brought into Star Wars when the prequels came out. So I was very young when the prequels came out. So just as a bit of bias at the start, I will be biased more towards the prequels than the sequels or the original trilogy. So obviously there's going to be a spoiler warning, especially when we get to Rise of Skywalker, because I will be explaining why I specifically liked a movie over another. So yeah, let's go and get right into it. Again, huge spoiler warning for Rise of Skywalker if you have yet to see it. Okay. So, I say we do the movies chronologically of when they happen within the timeline. So first of all, Episode 1. So as you can see with our tiers here, we have best, great, meh, bad, and just flat out terrible. So for Episode 1, that I think was actually the first Star Wars movie I ever saw. So I am actually going to put that as a meh. I know a lot of people hate it because of Jar Jar and stuff like that, but overall it wasn't a bad movie, especially if you factor in the whole Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon duel in it. We have the moment where Obi-Wan kind of turns to the dark side a little bit and ends up chopping Darth Maul in half. We get the start of just this whole entire story that would be Palpatine and Anakin related, so definitely liked that movie. That was definitely a meh. It wasn't bad, wasn't terrible, wasn't great, wasn't the best movie in the franchise. So next we have Attack of the Clones. So again, as I said before, I am definitely a prequels person. So this was actually one of my favorite movies of Star Wars. It's not the best, so I'm going to put it at great, because I remember as a kid watching the arena duel that happens towards the end of the movie with Anakin and Obi-Wan. And then all the Jedi and the Republic come in to save the day, and I just thought that was such a wonderful, amazing, fun scene with just, everybody charging in. Mace Windu decapitates Jango Fett, and, Boba Fett ends up grabbing the helmet later, which leads to him being who he is when he grows up. We get to learn a little bit of the origins of the clones, so we actually get to meet the clone troopers. We get to see the world of Kamino. I feel like even though this movie was a lot about Anakin and Padme's love story, it revolved a lot around Obi-Wan, which Obi-Wan is actually my favorite Star Wars character out of all of them. I've always just really enjoyed him, so I'm really looking forward to the Obi-Wan Disney Plus series that's going to be coming out. I think that's going to be really great, especially, they're bringing back Ewan McGregor to play Obi-Wan, so that makes me super happy. So, yes, that is where Attack of the Clone ranks for me. So, next in chronology, we have the Clone Wars movie. So if we're going just purely the movie itself, just the movie, instead of the animated series to go along with it, because if we were going along with that, I would put it in great. I kind of wish I had made another tier in between here, that's my bad. But, question is it great or meh? I like the introduction of Ahsoka. The whole fact of just learning that Anakin had a Padawan. I remember watching this in the theaters as well. It was just crazy to think about. I was like, well, why isn't she in any of the movies, And of course, you find that out by the end of the Clone Wars TV show that aired. I think I'm going to have to place that at meh. Again, it wasn't bad, it wasn't terrible, it wasn't great. I would say it's more good than great. Here we go, Revenge of the Sith. If not the darkest, one of the darkest Star Wars movies, but that's kind of what I enjoy so much about it. So this is, in my opinion, if not the best, one of the best Star Wars movies. It's just so dark. We have Anakin fully turning into Darth Vader. Padme dies at the end of it. We have Luke and Leia being born. We have that amazing duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar. And that duel was just so incredible, and you could obviously see the training with the actors behind everything of how well they trained to prepare for this fight scene, and it was just absolutely spectacular. I loved every minute of the movie, aside from, of course, the somewhat cringy acting, but that's what just came with the prequels, which I overlook that because, in my opinion, it's all about the story being told, and this executed the story perfectly. So up next within the timeline, we have Solo. Now, this is a movie I'm very biased towards because this movie came out after Last Jedi did, and I know not everybody liked Solo because they felt it was too much fan service, or they didn't care for it because they didn't like much after The Last Jedi. However, I very much enjoyed Solo because of the fan service. I thought Ron Howard and everyone involved did a great job with it, so this is definitely going to be a great movie, in my opinion. I loved it, especially at the end where we saw the twist with Darth Maul appearing within the hologram. I was like, wow, and I still want there to be a Solo sequel, even though at this point I doubt it will ever happen, just because of the reviews and ratings that this movie got. But Donald Glover did great as Lando. I just thought this movie was great with the cast, the setting, the plot, everything about it. I just thought it was absolutely amazing. So now we get to Rogue One. So, this is probably going to cause a lot of controversy here. I didn't care for Rogue One all that much. I really didn't care for it. It was kind of predictable of how it was going to end. You'd have to write off the characters somehow. The acting was great, and the storytelling was good, but, again, the plot was very predictable. Everybody was going to die. And I kind of didn't like the fact that everybody died. I get it, but that kind of ruined the movie for me. Which again, it's okay, but I would say it's more bad than meh. I don't know. It was just something about it. However, I will give it the CGI for Tarkin was great, and CGI for Leia at the end was But I did like how as soon as it ended was where A New Hope immediately picked up. I did like that, but it's not terrible. But I didn't care for it all that much. So, sorry Star Wars fans. That's just how I personally feel about it. Okay, so now we have A New Hope, which is the start of the series, if, for most people, depending on the order that you watch it in. So, A New Hope. I would say this one's probably meh, too. It's good, don't get me wrong, Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan, Mark Hamill is Luke, Carrie Fisher's Leia, Harrison Ford is Han Solo, everything was really enjoyable about this movie. But it's not my favorite of the original trilogy. I don't know, it's just something about it that I, didn't care for. Again, it's great, it's where the story actually started. If you go, in real life chronology, it's where the story started. It's where everything picks up, it's a great way to do it. But again, as I said at the start of the video, I am more biased towards the prequels because that's just when I grew up, and I'm sorry. Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back was great. It was definitely great. It was gritty, just like Revenge of the Sith was. That's what I love about Empire Strikes Back. It's so dark, You have Luke on Hoth. Movie starts off, Empire's, attacking, they're kind of screwed. Everything's just gone really bad. People are able to escape. Everything ends up fine. Luke ends up going to Dagobah to train with Yoda, which that's a really cool thing, Everything about Empire Strikes Back is just absolutely amazing. But again, it's not one of the best movies in my opinion. It's really fun. It's a blast. You get to explore more of the romance a little bit between Han and Leia, and introduce one of my favorite lines from the entire Star Wars franchise, which is, "You scruffy-looking nerf herder." That's a great line. Love it. But yeah. And then we have Return of the Jedi. Now, this is definitely one of the best movies. I thought everything in that movie was perfect. I remember watching it for the first time when it was on DVD. I thought the entire duel between Vader and Luke and the Emperor was just absolutely incredible. Luke was trying to turn his father. He knew he could be good. The Emperor didn't believe it. Vader didn't even believe it at the start, but he slowly shifted his dad over thanks to Palpatine being who he is and, trying to kill Luke. And Vader finally not standing for it. He turns back into Anakin at the end of the movie. With this movie, we also have the Ewoks. We see more of Lando, so that's great. We kind of learn a little bit more about the relationship between Vader and Obi-Wan. You know, Luke is getting more Force Ghost lessons. You see Yoda actually die in this movie, which is really sad. You know, if you watch it from like the prequels to the original trilogy, you know, you see such this great and powerful Jedi Master, you know, die. It's really sad, but at least he was able to teach Luke in the end. So I just thought Return of the Jedi was absolutely great. Everything about it, I loved it. Han waking up in the carbonite to start with Leia, the whole the Rancor pit, and then when they're fighting Jabba on the yachts, that was super fun. I remember it was a blast to play through when I played the Star Wars Lego games. Those are really fun as well to play. So yeah, so that was fun. So now we move on to the sequel trilogy, which obviously this is where the most spoilery stuff takes place, especially when we get to Rise of Skywalker. So, The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens was definitely meh. A lot of people compared it with A New Hope, which I very much get that formula. It was definitely interesting to see a new cast of characters, just a new cast of everybody come together. And so that was really cool, you know. It left us with all these questions at the end where it's like, well, where is this going to go? You know, this is crazy. You know, Han's dead. Kylo's still evil, you know. So it was a meh movie. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. Wasn't terrible. Wasn't the best, you know. Just like A New Hope, you know. It's right next to each other. So now we have The Last Jedi. Oh boy. I didn't like this movie for many reasons. So I will have to say this beforehand. I did not originally see this movie in theaters because I didn't know if I was going to be able to. So what I did was I looked up the spoilers for it, and I read. I was like, this is really stupid. So then when it finally came out and I was able to actually watch it, I still didn't like it. There are many things. There was the whole Leia scene where she was kind of using the Force to go through space. I didn't care for that. And this movie was gritty, which, you know, I liked with Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back, but this movie just did it to the extreme, and I did not like it. You know, you had Luke literally try and kill Kylo when Kylo was young because he saw the darkness in him. Luke knew not to do that, because if Luke knew his father could be redeemed, you know, why couldn't Kylo be redeemed? Especially because Vader is, if not the most powerful, one of the most powerful Force users in all of Star Wars. So if the most powerful Force user, or one of the most powerful Force wielders, not be saved, why couldn't you save your nephew? I thought that the best part of this movie was the whole connection explored between Rey and Kylo. I thought that was the best, and I wish they would have explored it more. And I didn't care for the ending battle scene with Finn and Rose, where, you know, he left first, and then somehow she's able to catch him up. I found that too ridiculous to believe, and I was just like, okay. And I get they killed Luke off at the end. I didn't care for that either, but it's just all of Luke's arc I really didn't care for. And, you know, I know a lot of people loved it, but this, in my opinion, is the only terrible movie within all of Star Wars. But again, this is just my opinion. So, and then finally we get into the most spoiler territory here. We have Rise of Skywalker. So I'm putting this in bad. So when I saw this, I saw it a few days after it came out. I thought it was just meh, like I thought it was good. It felt like a lot was missing in it. And as we've learned recently with this whole Reddit leak that's came out with J.J. Abrams' actual movie being like cut and Disney removing a lot of stuff he and the cast fought so hard for. Again, if that's true, then if they did release the J.J. cut and like release like the full 3 hours version, I think is what the Reddit post claimed, it would just be so much better. And I would probably put it at great. But the part that really got me is, you know, a lot of it was good, but yeah, the part that really got me is at the end when Rey is facing Palpatine, right? You know, she hears all these voices in her head, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh, we're going to see all the Force Ghosts. You know, like, we're going to see Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker again, so that would make me happy being a prequel person. We're going to see Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. Again, I'm a prequel person. You know, we hear all these voices. We even hear Ahsoka talk. And again, if the Reddit post is to to be believed about JJ's posts, these scenes were actually shot and filmed with basically any and all people who weren't from the animated shows, like Ahsoka, Ezra, etc. Which that scene would have been so cool if that's what happened. And it was supposed to be this face-off between all of the Sith within Palpatine, which the leak mentions that the Sith are actually supposed to be there too. Which I think what would have been a really cool moment is if Darth Revan was actually there, because if you look, it was shown that in the visual dictionary for this movie, it's actually shown that Darth Revan is canon, because I think there's like a Legion of Troopers named after him, I believe, is what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, so it would be just really cool to see all these Sith kind of behind Palpatine, and then so you have this giant confrontation, a final confrontation, because this is what's building up for 40 years, is a final confrontation between the Jedi and the Sith. And Rey and Palpatine literally kept mentioning so many times during their final fight that all the Jedi are in me, well, all the Sith are in me, It would have been great if we could actually see that. And I'm not a Reylo fan myself, I'm cool with it. I was cool with the kiss at the end. That was fine. Again, I'm not a big Reylo fan personally, but that was fine. I liked that Ben was able to redeem himself. I liked the way that they were able to use Leia, even though Carrie Fisher, has unfortunately passed on. I felt they did her they could have done her a lot more justice, without using CGI, which they'd promised not to. But I felt that was meh, like her usage. But the fact that her and her son kind of gave her life to save and Rey at the end to defeat Palpatine one last time. Palpatine's death honestly reminded me of Voldemort's death in Deathly Hallows Part 2, like the movie, of just kind of how he just like kind of disappears into thin air, kind of, That's what his death kind of reminded me of. And I just felt there were a lot of things that they could have done better with this movie, which again, if that JJ cut actually exists, I would really like to see that, because if it's true, this movie would not be down here. It would probably be in great, in all honesty. There was a lot missing from this movie, but as I said again, when I first saw it, it was meh, but as I kept reading more and more opinions on it, I was like, well, I actually agree, a lot of these points make a lot of sense, but at the end, yeah, there was just a lot of stuff missing, I felt. So, I get it, Disney doesn't want to take risks, but at the same time, you kind of have to, because where do you go from The Last Jedi? I get this is a few years after, but where The Last Jedi took, ended essentially, it was kind of hard to figure out where you want to go from there. So I did like the line that Luke says as the Force Ghost when he's talking to Rey, when he says, "That's no way to treat a Jedi's weapon," when she's about to throw the lightsaber into the fire, and he kind of stops her. And then the ending too was very disappointing. After Palpatine dies, Rey is on Tatooine, and I think that was really sweet how she buried Leia and Luke's lightsabers. I thought that was very sweet. But at the same time, the movie's called Rise of Skywalker, and Rey is a Palpatine. And then at the end of the movie, you have that old lady. She's walking. She's like, "Who are you? There's no one been here in many years." And she's like, "I'm Rey." Rey who? And then she looks over at the ghost of Luke and Leia, and she says, "Rey Skywalker." And I guess that's supposed to mean in an adoptive sense, but I didn't really care for that part either. It would have been really cool. I would have much preferred it if, you have all the Force ghosts behind Obi-Wan. Behind Luke and Leia. Because, again, everything has been leading up to this. And before this movie, came out, everybody was talking, this is going to include the prequels and stuff like that. And I feel like that was a huge missed opportunity with that, because there wasn't much used from the prequels. Palpatine mentions that, he made Anakin, stuff like that, and it's Palpatine again. But still, a lot was missing from this movie, so that's why I'm giving it a bad rating. So until they come out with more footage or, more facts or just stuff like that, stuff that we can actually see and appreciate, it's got to stay in the bad. And I'm sorry, but yeah, it was nowhere near as bad as Last Jedi. So, as a review for our tier, in the best, we have Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi. In great, we have Attack the Clones, Solo, and Empire Strikes Back. In the meh, we have Phantom Menace, the Clone Wars movie, again, movie only, A New Hope, and Force Awakens. In bad, we have Rogue One and Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. And then in terrible, we have Star Wars The Last Jedi. Thank you, Rian Johnson. So yeah, that's all we have for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys for the next video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.